in here, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you. First and foremost, thank you for taking the time today to join us for this webinar presented by Tackle AI, titled The 4 Ways Artificial Intelligence Can Automate Your Business Processes. Just a couple housekeeping items that we're going to start with. So all attendees in the webinar today are going to be on listen-only mode. This webinar is being recorded for later viewing. So if you have to jump out or you get in late, no worries. There will be a video recording of this that will be available for later viewing. And if you do have questions, we hope to have some time at the end for a Q&A session. But if you have any questions throughout the webinar today, please go ahead and submit it into the Q&A box on your side, and I will be monitoring that. And if it's a quick answer or a technical issue, I might be able to help out. Otherwise, if it is a question about content, we will be answering that time permitting at the end. And if we do run out of time, we will be sure to be answering all of those questions offline at another time as well. So just quickly, a little bit about our speakers today. So my name is Brett Fritz. I am a marketing specialist here at Tackle AI, and I am super honored and privileged to be speaking with Joe Stetcher, our CEO and co-founder of Tackle AI. Joe, I'm going to have you say hello here in a second, but before I do so, I also just want to recognize that just this week, actually, Tackle AI was presented with a top 20 artificial intelligence solution providers of 2020. Being recognized by CIO Applications Magazine. Super excited about that. I know, Joe, there's a big article and interview coming out in a few weeks from that magazine talking about all things Tackle AI and a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. So congratulations on that. And Joe, please say hello to the audience today.
Excellent. Thanks, Brett. Hello, everybody. I'm definitely looking forward to today's discussion and really just want to thank you guys for joining us. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And so just for our agenda today, we're going to keep this pretty short and succinct. We hope to be done in less than 40, 45 minutes at most. We want to be respectful of everyone's calendar and busy schedules. But here's the things we're going to be talking about. So first, we're going to do just quickly define what AI we're talking about. AI and artificial intelligence has truly become a big buzzword in the industry, and there's a lot of different versions of what AI is and the definitions out there. So we're going to define that, and then we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of this webinar and look at 4 different business process automations and use cases where AI can really benefit large corporations and businesses alike. So we're going to get into the details of that and go through some real examples. And Joe, I'm really excited for you to kind of dig into those. And then we'll finish with just open Q&A and ways to contact Tackle AI if anyone has follow-up questions. So let's dig right in. I'm excited. Joe, I know you're excited. And so we'll get going right away. So first and foremost, what AI are we talking about today? Like I mentioned, there are a lot of different definitions of artificial intelligence. And so I want to start with just a few AIs that we are not talking about. So as exciting as this would be, we are not here to talk about Terminator. We're not here to talk about Skynet and Cyberdyne systems, although that would be freaking cool and a lot of fun. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're also not here to talk about robots in warehouses. That's kind of been a bigger buzz thing, especially with Amazon and other big e-commerce engines that are automating warehouse deliveries and whatnot, or drones. We're not talking about that today, although there are some cool applications with AI around that. We're also not here to talk about self-driving autonomous cars, another sweet feature of AI. And hopefully one day I will have a car that has some self-driving features. We're not here to talk about that. What we are here to talk about, and what I'm super, super excited about, is the plumbing of artificial intelligence. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, did Brett just say the plumbing of AI? What does that mean? So Joe, let me pull you in here. I know to you and me, this makes complete sense, but can you help just give the audience an idea of what we're talking about? What do we mean when we say we're here to talk about the plumbing of AI?
Absolutely, you're spot on, Brett. Our AI isn't necessarily the most sexy artificial intelligence you see, or it isn't the It's like the artificial intelligence you guys see in the movies or on TV. Instead, our AI runs more behind the scenes. It automates your business's existing workflows, which saves your company a lot of time and a lot of money. And we're here to kind of showcase that to you guys today.
Yeah, awesome. And I know a lot of that really just has to deal with data, right? So talk about what dynamic data we're talking about. These unstructured documents. It's another kind of big buzzword that's hitting around the industry. So give me some details around this.
Absolutely. So IBM actually came out with a study a few years ago showing that over 80% of the world's information is contained within unstructured formats. And this is only going to continue to get worse as the world becomes more and more digital. So the point is, if 80% of the information is unstructured, that means the remaining 20% is structured, right? But what exactly is unstructured versus structured documents? So essentially what it is let's start with the 20%. Right, these are the simple documents that never change how they look. You know, a name is always in the top left corner, for example, and an address is always in the top right corner, et cetera. A really good example of a structured document is like a governmental W-2 or an I-9 form. It's a very structured form. You know where your name is always going to be. You know where the address always is going to be. You know where the social security number or the EIN number is always going to be on those kind of forms. It's very, very structured. But 20% is just the tip of the iceberg. The majority of the world, as we now know, works with unstructured documents. So these are Word documents, Excel documents, PDFs, make up all this unstructured documentation that contains valuable information and valuable insights for your business that until now has been very difficult to extract. Not to mention the amount of time and errors that occur along the way with dealing with, humans trying to manually extract information from these sort of documents. It's very complicated and very time consuming and very costly to a lot of businesses. And a lot of important information gets lost along the way. So, Brett, probably the easiest way to compare like a structured document versus unstructured is literally just to compare a W-2 versus an email. So let's say you take 100 W-2s. You know that 100% of the time, the name's always going to be there and the address is always going to be in the spot where it's supposed to be, unless somebody inputs it wrong and then there's error. But if you compare that form, how it's structured is one way, versus if you take 100 random emails in your inbox today, guarantee you, not any two are going to be exactly the same. So that's kind of the quickest and easy way I can sort of describe the difference between unstructured versus a structured document.
Yeah, I think that's great, Joe. And I think there's a key phrase you said in there that we're going to touch on a lot today, and that is you use the word 100, right? So I think it's key here as we start to look at some example use cases. And we've got some large organizations and businesses on the line today listening in. So we're not talking about having to deal with one W-9 or one document. We're talking about scale. We're talking about hundreds, thousands, millions of documents that these large organizations have to deal with. And how are you able to really optimize those workflows and those processes accordingly at scale, efficiently, in a resource constrained world that we all live in these days? I think that's the key thing, is scale and using of examples of automation there. So thank you for that definition of structured versus unstructured. Really, really helpful. And it sets the stage. As much as I would love to be talking about Terminator, I think that, as you said, especially in the business world, 80% of that data sits on unstructured documents. That's the majority of everything, right? So super pumped to begin. There's some examples here. So let's dig right in. We've got 4 use cases we want to look at. You'll see, Joe, as we were organizing this, some form and function around how we're going to talk about these use cases. But I know the audience is really keen on getting some true insights out of this. So excited to jump right in. Business case automation number 1. So in this case, we're going to talk about customer data discovery and extraction. So being able to extract data off of a document, understand that data appropriately, and then do something with it. So if I were a business owner, a stakeholder in a large organization, a manager of databases, this might be my typical workflow, the process that I go through. And I'm really going to simplify this down. So step number 1 would be that I have to identify the data points that I want to extract, right? I need to look at that document or multiple documents and say, okay, I need to find the customer information, name, address, phone number, or maybe it's a business location information. maybe it's account number information, but I need to really first understand what am I trying to extract. Second step is I got to find the data on the document. And again, think about it from a scale perspective. If it's one document, easy. Use my eyes, scan the document up and down, find it, highlight it, and do something with it. But when I've got hundreds or thousands of documents here, I think that's where, we've seen examples of human process that's getting shipped off overseas, or you've got just an army of people, and we're going to talk about that later, but you got to be able to find the data on the document. And then step number 3, you got to do something with it, right? So identify it, find it, and do something with it. Extract it, organize it, put it onto into another database, use it in a way that's functional. So let's look at it at an example here, Joe. So here is a children's medical report, hospital system. These types of reports seem pretty, familiar, and this workflow seems pretty straightforward of being able to extract, discover and extract. So talk me through here. Why would implementing an AI be important in a case like this?
Absolutely. So this is a real live use case. Obviously, the information contained on here has been sanitized, but this is one of our healthcare customers, and this is just one of their simple forms I use, but they do deal with a lot of oncology reports, lab reports, use medical reports, so on and so forth. And they could be anywhere from a page long to 3 pages long to 10 pages long to however long a doctor wants to dictate their notes on a report, right? But this specific workflow is, their old workflow, was they would send this information overseas and have a bunch of humans read through it. They pull off the name, they pull off some medical history, they pull off physical exam information. They would then take that information, populate it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then send it back over to the States, where his team would then go ahead and upload the information up into the EHR system. That old workflow would take them 24 to 48 hours. And with humans causing an average of 10 to 30% typical error rate, it's added up with a lot of issues within the EHR system. After leveraging Tackle AI, this exact same workflow gets done in less than 1/3 of 1 second. And the greatest thing about this also is our accuracy is 99.9993% accurate. So not only is it faster, it's actually causing less errors to be in the database and less errors in the entire system. So this customer is very, very, very happy. And this is just their way that they've leveraged our AI.
So I love it, Joe. Great lead in here to these use cases. I'm going to ask a question, just throw you a curveball here. Date of birth is on the top right in this structured format. If I'm a hospital system and all of these children's medical reports are the same every time, we just went through song and dance about unstructured versus structured. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a curve that comes into the workflow. Like, how would an AI, like Tackle AI, solve that?
Yeah, thanks, Brett. It's kind of cool because this is where our AI has a level of intelligence. There's something in the industry called zoning. So if you got those W-9, W-2s, you got these child med reports, and the information is exactly going to be there every single time, you could zone. You could put a little box around this, and we'll kind of showcase this in one of the later use cases. But you could put a box around that and have some kind of software just automatically extract it. The problem is not these reports specifically, these unstructured documents. This information isn't always like top right hand corner. It may be actually spelled out date of birth. It might be just DOB. It actually might be bumped down. Somebody actually might make a mistake and put their name there instead of the date of birth. Other softwares won't be able to tell that, hey, this is not a date of birth, this is a name, or this is a social security number, this is a phone number. And it's just going to pull the information, populate the database, and now you have more errors in your database. Your database is now corrupt. And when you run analytics against that, you're now going to get bad results in your analytics. Our AI, again, has this level of intelligence where it can tell, hey, this says it's supposed to be a date of birth, but this is not a date of birth contained. I think this is the name instead, and it will either correct it or it will go ahead and route it to a human for verification, whatever the client's comfortable with. But thanks for that question, Brett.
Yeah, got it. No, and I know that question, as we just went through the structured versus unstructured, so I figured I'd just kind of address that one right away off the bat. Thanks, Joe. So let's move to a second use case, because we've got some more interesting ways to use AI here. So second use case is auto-filing and organizing documents. So different than just finding data on the document. Now you've got a lot of different types of documents. So again, I'm the stakeholder, I'm the customer in this case. What's my process? Step one, I receive documents. It's coming in through scans, faxes, emails, whatever way my organization is receiving those documents, I'm just getting bombarded with them. Step two, I have to identify what type of document that is. Does it go to the left or does it go to the right? Just kind of like a mail filing system, right? Like, or an old library. How, where's the filing system go? And then step number three, I need to actually just file it, right? Identify it, file it, and put it in the right folder. So really simplifying it down here, what the process is for a workflow. And as I was going through this, Joe, I start to think to myself, this seems too easy, right? Like, yeah, I'm a business manager. I get a lot of documents come in. I have a filing system on my computer, easy enough. But then I started again thinking about scale, right? And as we start thinking about it, maybe like in the legal industry, there's some case files or some court documents that are sent in to me, or there's just a spreadsheet filled with client information, or maybe it's a subpoena, right? I, as an individual person, could handle all of these documents getting flooded into me one by one. But before you know it, oh my gosh, I would be overwhelmed if it was hundreds, thousands, like I said, hundreds of thousands, millions of documents that start to hit my desk on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So scale is the key here, right? So give me more detail, Joe. Like, why would an AI and how would an AI be able to utilize, more efficiencies for a case like this?
Absolutely. So this is actually another case, use case, I should say, with one of our clients in obviously the legal industry. Actually, it's the legal case management industry. But let me back up a little bit because I want to sort of make a comparison to kind of the question you posed here, Brett, about filing these documents. But whether you're filing like a piece of paper, like a physical piece of paper into a physical filing cabinet like back in the day, or you're filing a PDF into a virtual folder, the work still needs to be completed either way. In fact, I would argue that more filing errors happen digitally than they did with physical paper. I mean, how easy is it to just drag and drop a document into the wrong folder? And you have no idea. It happens all the time, and we're only human, right? Same thing happens. So that's kind of the comparison I use with digital filing. So our AI is pretty wicked smart. Again, its level of intelligence, not only can it file the document automatically based on the type of document, but can also pull out data points within each document. And this can be super useful later on for searching. So say you want to search all the documents in all of your database and pull up every document that pertains to John Smith, or you want to find every single document listing Jane Doe's social security number. This would take a human a very long time to accomplish, to go through everything in your digital database to pull this information up. But with AI, Tackle AI, you can have that information in seconds. So it's super quick, super easy, and it makes it a lot more efficient because you're not wasting time and people's resources and making errors filing these documents automatically. With Tackle AI, it does it super fast.
Yeah, I got to share too. You and I were on a call just last week, and the business we were talking to said that they have a repository of over 300 million documents, and they've been collecting these documents for 10, 20 years, and they're all digital documents, and they're just sitting there. And they said, we don't know how to search that database, that we can't pull data off of the documents. And that was just like, mind blowing to me. I was like, wow, that's you got to organize it, extract, so awesome. I love it. I love that. And I think there's some really applicable use cases and some people on the line today that could benefit from something like this, just organizing their documents. All right, halfway home with the use cases. So let's go to number 3. And this is one that's near and dear to my heart because I love the legal system. I love financial services. I love those industries that require a little bit more of high touch, yet also confidential information. And so being able to confidently redact confidential information is key. So again, stakeholder, that's me. I'm going to go through the process. If I need to redact information, step 1, just like before, I need to identify those data points that I want to redact. I need to know that I'm going to redact on every document, a name, an account number, an address, a case number, whatever it may be. I got to go find it on the document, so I could go ship it off overseas or to my army of minions that are going to actually do it, and scan it with their eyes and use a human process. And maybe that's the most common way most people are doing it these days. And then I have to black out the area and make sure I'm blacking out the correct thing, the correct data point. Because if I incorrectly black it out, I'm going to be in trouble. If I black out the wrong thing and leave something open, I'm exposing some really confidential information there. So Joe, here's an example of a bank, we'll call it a bank loan statement from Chase Bank. And we as Chase Bank, as our example here, would need to redact the client information, the mortgage amount number, and maybe the social security number of our client. This seems pretty straightforward to me, right? And I, before I got really technically involved in understanding Tackle AI, I just thought, oh, this is easy, right? You say, go find the social security number and black it out. But clearly that's not the case. So give me more detail and insights on how this has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually one of my favorite use cases because it really highlights part of our AI's intelligence again. We always joke at Tackle AI that if you're using Excel for your AI, you're not really using AI. And honestly, I do feel a sense of obligation here. If you guys are seriously looking to add some sort of AI to existing business, and quite frankly, you should be, please, 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 for the love of all, do your research. There is a huge buzzword right now, and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on. I mean, we know specifically some very large organizations with very well-known names and gigantic marketing budgets that have an army of people, physical people behind the scenes that they're calling their quote-unquote AI. So please make sure you do your research, dig deep, call us, contact us to help you guys out as well if you want. But I just want to put that out there and let you guys know, be careful if you're looking at AI. Okay, public service announcements over. I'm done with my little soap opera there. Let's get back to the topic at hand. This, Brett, is a use case from a bankruptcy and foreclosure law firm that leveraged our AI to find that sensitive information, that stuff they need to go ahead and redact for sending things to court. So like you mentioned, name, mortgage amount, social security number. What's really interesting here in the level of intelligence is that social security number. We are the only we're the only AI in the world that we know that can find that number below SSN as a social security number. Now, we're not going to go into the technical weeds of why others fail here, but it has to do with relying on that zoning thing we talked about, using what's called keywords, or relying on the OCR results, which are wrong more than half of the time, or using a pattern ranker. There's so much here that causes other softwares to fail and even humans to fail. But the point is, our AI has a real intelligence that goes beyond where others fail.
Very cool. Very cool. And I know that we've already had requests to be able to get deeper in a technical stance. And so maybe that'll be a future webinar topic that we'll get deeper into, how Tackle AI can find a social security number like that without giving away the secret sauce, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, so the AI finds it, and instead of using minions and armies of people, Tackle AI and the AI are able to just quickly, black out the correct spots on there. Which I think is awesome. And I've seen this work in action. I've seen it live. It's amazing. You almost goes fast.
I don't mean to cut you off, Brett, but what's really cool about this too is like our AI, what's the theme you guys are noticing here is our AI is good at extracting any kind of information from any kind of document, right? How the customer then wants it is completely up to the customer. We've had this is a redaction. The customer wanted us to find the information, redact it. The last use case, customer wants to find it and then file it. The first use case was the customer wanted us to find it and populate their database directly. I mean, all these different use cases are awesome. So just think with your imagination, what do you guys want to go ahead and automate in your day-to-day business? But what's also really neat is for this redaction specific demo, or document, I should say, we save this as a flat file. So it will always be a black bar. No one's ever going to be able to see underneath it. We were actually at a live demo and did a presentation of this redaction tool. They sent us a document that was quote unquote redacted. Our AI was able to pull what was out beneath the redaction.
Wow.
And that's because the software they used before didn't save it as a flat file. And so that's where we go the extra step to make sure that no one's ever going to see this redacted information.
Wow.
So be careful with that.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think your statement about how, whatever the client wants to do with the AI is possible. That's a great lead into the last use case here. And I wanted to finish with this one because it truly is building upon what you said, like, do you need to extract data? Do you need to organize data? What do you want to do with the data? Because, business workflows typically don't just live in a silo, right? There's multiple departments or needs, across the organization. And every business, especially these large corporations that many of whom are sitting on the line today, and you work with a lot of them at Tackle AI, they have an accounting department and they need to process invoices. So I wanted to finish this, and we'll get a little deeper into the weeds on automation number 4 of invoice to accounts payable process. So let's look through the workflow here. So step 1, I, as a stakeholder, I need to receive the invoices to be paid. And remember, we're talking about scale. So my accounting department gets hundreds of invoices a week, a month, et cetera. I'm at scale because I am a large, bank or a hospital system or legal law firm that has, hundreds or thousands of offices across the country. So I'm going to get my invoices. They're coming into me, scans, faxes, emails, however the invoice is being sent in, old snail mail, et cetera. Step 2 is I have to figure out what data is correct. And that seems pretty straightforward, but we're going to look at a couple examples of invoices that, not all invoices are sitting on the same format, right? So you got to find the right, who do I pay? When is it due? What's the amount that I have to pay? And other data points on there. Once I have that information, I have to go ahead and actually enter it into my AP tool, into my software that's going to process that payment. And that's step 4, right? I got to run that process now. And so I pay out my vendors, I pay out my invoices, but then once everything's paid, I actually have to do some filing now, right? I have to mark the invoices paid. I have to go back to my books, make sure that everything's organized. I have to, maybe take that file and put it in the vendor file that I have organized somewhere else to make sure that, I'm keeping track of my records. So I love this example here because it really ties together the first 2, not as much redaction, but the first 2 use cases of organizing data, finding data, extracting data, and putting it all together into a big process that can fit across, the accounting department. So let's look at some examples, Joe. So I've got 2 invoices here. We're going to start with the one on the left, and then we'll look at a more complicated one. But talk me through it. Again, seems straightforward, but it's always a little more complicated than it seems.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this is an example of what our Tackle Invoices tool, which Brett mentions, automates those AP invoice processing workflows. So this first invoice on the left is very basic, very simple. We can pull the vendor name, we can pull the invoice number, the total, for example. Very simple. The invoice that we see now on the right side, the second one, is a little more unique. So when I first looked at this invoice, I thought the total was $6,041.32. I mean, it's the largest number on the bottom. It's the largest number actually on the invoice period. It's located at the bottom, and it's even underlined. But that is not the total for this invoice. The correct total is $650.75. I mean, I personally would have entered the wrong information into the accounts payable software. So apparently, thank goodness, I'm not in accounts payable. But I tell you what, REI was able to determine the correct total for this specific invoice. And if customers want more information pulled out these invoices, that's no problem too. And I might be stealing sort of Brett's thunder here, but what's really cool about this use case is that we are automating everything. Our AI monitors the client's inbox, which is their Outlook. Our AI opens emails that contain invoices. It then opens those actual invoice, extracts necessary information, and then populates that information directly into their third-party accounts processing software. So once more, all this is done completely without any human interaction. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It really ties everything together, right? It's the full workflow. And now those resources that we're having to manage things manually are really able to go work on other tasks and be more efficient in their jobs and ultimately be more cost effective for the organization, which is great. So that leads us to just overall benefits, right? So we looked at 4 different use cases. Joe, I quickly pulled out, here's 3 solution benefits when working with Tackle AI. And I don't want to just say generically because there are a lot of jokers out there, but having an AI system in place, right? If it's a true AI, like we talk about at Tackle AI, here's some great benefits, right? And I think it starts with this top bullet at the top, which is the first bullet at the top, which is able to process dynamic data on those unstructured documents without ever being seen before. And that's key, right? Like, cause just as like in the invoice example, we looked at 2 different invoices. If a new vendor comes in tomorrow, they're going to have a whole new type of invoice that has never been seen before. So you have to have an AI that's going to be able to process those automatically at a very high accuracy rate without having to worry about any of that. The speed of invoice or in any workflow process is going to go up, right? And that's going to really help you be more efficient. And then the data errors. You quickly touched on this earlier, but really being able to reduce data errors and data entry from human interaction is super important. But Joe, give me more. Like, what are some other benefits to working with someone like Tackle AI?
I would just add kind of 2 things here. I just want to clarify, we can also work on structured documents. We don't only work on unstructured. It's just structured documents are so easy for us to do. We don't really, have to mention about it, but we can work with all kinds of documents, all kinds of information. So no worries there. But one thing I do want to add on here and kind of touch upon in the last use case is there is literally no new software an end user would need to learn. A lot of what other software that claim to do what we can do, what they do is you have to pay for the software. Then you have to pay to train up your employees how to use that software. Then you have to pay your employees to train up the AI on your specific documents contained within your business. So you're actually like three payments or 3 large payments deep into getting this AI up and running versus Tackle AI. There isn't any software they need to learn. We automate existing workflows for you guys. So it literally is just doing the work and automating it for you. For example, one of our customers, we've literally automated I think we're up to 84% of their entire workflow.
Wow.
So there literally is only 16% left that humans have to work on.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring, right? If I was sitting on this webinar, I'd say, yeah. Show me the results. Okay. So we got results. Let's talk through a case study, of actually having this implemented, working with Tackle AI. What are the results that the clients are seeing? So here's a before. Client comes in, they've got a staff of 800 plus employees working on these workflows and non-automations. They've got some data error rates between 10 and 30% of their data accuracy, and it's taken them 48 hours. Talk me through this, Joe.
Absolutely. So this was, for a very large company, and they determined about 800 of their employees were being leveraged to just transfer information from one system to another because the 2 systems don't communicate well. We saw it a lot in healthcare, whether it was just doing those manual data entry sort of tasks. They determined there's about 800 employees that were doing that in their day-to-day business, which is a lot. And so after we went ahead and implemented Tackle AI, you can see the results are absolutely amazing. 90% reduction in staff having to actually manually file documents, and a much higher accuracy rate, which means there's less time trying to find a misfiled document, for example. But what's kind of not shown on this graph, and this equated to, I think it was about $30 million annual savings for this company. But I want to touch on sort of what's not shown in this graph is the unintended benefit for this customer. Most of those resources, we're not saying, hey, they just got rid of 90% of their workforce. Not the case. Most of those resources were actually reallocated elsewhere within the business to help with more of those business critical work. Like, for example, instead of paying their paralegals to file documents all day, they were instead researching information to help them win their case. And as a result, the firm's success in the courtroom increased, which grew their business even more. So there's a lot of unintended benefits to leveraging Tackle AI versus just the time and money savings.
Huge. I love it. And I know that, Tackle AI is not charging this client $30 million. So that's
no, far less. Although we probably should charge more.
Yeah, but that's a win-win-win, right? It's like the client's happy,
Indeed.
the happy, and the employees are happy because they're being more successful in their jobs. So that leads me to the kind of the big question that I want to ask to the audience here is, what business process should you be automating, right? I'm sure that the businesses that are sitting on here today listening for the last 30 minutes are thinking to themselves, hey, I've got something I'm doing. It's a manual process. I'm paying people. I'm shipping documents overseas. I'm having a hard time organizing. I can't redact the right information. My software is not working properly. So I'm sure there are some business processes that are out there that the people listening in are thinking, yep, this is up my alley. This is what I'm looking for. So if that's you, I implore you, reach out to Tackle AI. We would love to have a conversation with you. There's several ways that we can get in contact with you today. You can simply send us an email to info@tackleai.com or check out our website and fill out a form on there. We are on LinkedIn. We're starting to put a lot more content out on LinkedIn. Love for you to interact with us that way. Also on Twitter. And we're going to be doing more of these webinars. We're going to be doing more outreach and communication. So if you are just looking for maybe just a one-on-one discussion to say, hey, I just want to pick your brain, even if it doesn't turn into a sale or a partnership with us, but we can, just give you some information and help, lead you down the right path, we would be glad to do that. So we do have some time here. I wanted to be respectful. I told everyone less than 45 minutes, so we've got a few minutes left here. But before I do that, I just want to say, Joe, thank you. Great information today. We're going to answer a couple questions that did come in during the last 35 minutes or so here. So Joe, thanks. And let me just jump right into a couple questions, if that's okay with you, Joe.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Let's do it.
Cool. So question one that came in, and I'm gonna paraphrase this a little bit, but the question was, Joe, you explained zoning. You talked about it a few different times. Can you just give a little more detail on what that means? And I know, in the industry, zoning is a term, and we've actually talked about putting out an AI data dictionary to help demystify some of these terms. But can you give a little more detail, Joe, on what that zoning term is that you meant?
Sure. So zoning is kind of like that. It's a process like just putting boxes around data fields that will then later be automatically extracted. It works well with those structured documents. So like the example earlier was like a W-9 form, for example. Your name field is always near the top. You can put a box around that field or zone it around that name field and have whatever's entered in that box extracted. Where zoning falls short, unfortunately, is with those unstructured documents, or because the data is never in the same place twice, right, on a document. Or, again, we're humans, we fat thumb something and we put the wrong information in that field. That zoning is just going to pull whatever's contained in that box and put it wherever you tell it to put it automatically without double checking it. So that's kind of what, in a short nutshell, what zoning is. A good question.
I got it. Thanks, Joe. All right, next question that came in was, we have our documents already digitized or in a digital format, right? So they went through a digital transformation. It's not just physical copy of documents anymore. So we have that database set up. Why would we need an AI to do something like Tackle AI offers? And I think this is a key one, right? Because the documents are digital, Joe. Like, why do they need an AI solution in the middle?
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually a question we get often enough, shockingly. But so essentially, just because, and I don't want to kind of dummy this down, but basically, just because you have a digital document on your computer, or just because you scanned a piece of paper and now it's digitized and it's in your computer, doesn't mean your computer knows what the heck is on that document. It doesn't know what the heck that document is. There still needs to be somebody or something telling the computer, hey, this is a summons, this is a oncology report, this is whatever kind of document it is. And then you need to go ahead and take information off of that document so it knows what's on that document, so you can go ahead and search it or find it later. So it's quite a question we always get. In fact, I remember one demo run, and there was the CEO and a CTO of this large organization. And CEO, I'm poking fun at myself right now, but the CEO was like, why do I need this? I literally have all my PDFs in my computer. Why do I need this? And the CTO literally, it sounded like he physically slapped him and said, are you kidding me? This is huge. We need this because our computers have no idea what's on these documents unless we manually enter the information. So it's a big question, it's a big issue, and definitely we need to make sure that everyone kind of knows what's going on with it.
Got it. Very good. Very good. Okay, last question. Question came in, said, does Tackle AI offer a SaaS-based model, so software as a service, or is it the AI is installed on site or on premise within our organization? So can you talk through the business model of how Tackle AI operates?
Sure. I think they may be asking if it's more like a cloud-based or if we can be on site is what I think the question is asking. But the quick answer is both. You know, some of our, for example, healthcare clients aren't ready to move everything to the cloud. I spent about 6 years in healthcare. They hated everything in the cloud because they were afraid it wasn't safe. So we can go ahead and make sure that we install our AI on their server, behind their firewall, so they are super comfortable. So we can go ahead and run it on site. Or if you guys want to go ahead and just have it run in the cloud, we are cloud-based, we're HIPAA compliant, we are secure to the tilt. In fact, we even have a contract with the United States Air Force. So, you know, we are definitely secure here at Tackle AI. But short answer is we can do both, cloud-based or on-site installations.
Perfect. Joe, I love it. Thank you again. This has been great. I know I walked away, you know, just learning a few extra things, even though you and I talk every day about this stuff. And I feel like I'm always learning and evolving, you know, my understanding of this. So thank you. Really appreciate your time. Thank you again to everyone that joined us. As I mentioned at the beginning, this video webinar has been recorded. So there will be a recording of it available, and you can download that and use it at your leisure. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Love to have a conversation with you, even if it's just to talk AI or Terminator or any of that stuff. We're here. So thank you again. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.